Wine is something that people all over the world consume. It's common with dinner, common at parties, and basically common in most parts of the world. According to wineinstitute.org, 913 million gallons of wine were consumed by U.S. citizens in 2015 alone. Wine has many purposes. It is used to help some people relax with a glass after a long day, to be served at dinner parties, to help complement a dinner, and even in church. My name is Maddy Leavitt, and today I'm going to do my presentation on the process of making wine. Today I'm going to inform my audience on the three major parts of making wine: what goes into the wine, how exactly it's made, and the final aging and bottling process. In order to help my audience better understand how wine that they might drink is made, I'm going to first talk about the key ingredients that are in it. Most people know that grapes are a main ingredient in wine. Everybody has seen the movies where people stomp in the wine and then drink it. Large plants of grapes are in vineyards, which I have an example of on slide 1, and all of these grapes are used to make bulk wine from these vineyards. What many people do not know is that there is more than just grapes used to make wine. One key ingredient is yeast. According to winemagazine.eu, yeast removes the sugar from the grape juice and makes it more musty and alcoholic. It impacts the aroma, the flavor, and the way that it feels when it hits the mouth. Another key ingredient that people don't know about is sulfur dioxide, or SO2. SO2 is a type of gas, and usually when used in wine, it's at its 57% capacity. Which contains salt, potassium, and metabisfolite. It's often not used until the fermentation process, but this can depend on the winemaker's choices. But if not used correctly, the SO2 can change the flavor of the wine, so when winemakers do add it, they need to make sure that they are adding it carefully and paying attention to what they're doing. In addition, there are some acids used as a key component. Tartaric acid is one that is already located in the grape itself, but winemakers can add more because it affects the particle stability, the color, as well as the aging. According to winemag.eu, citric acid is also used, but mostly in just whites in order to make the whites brighter. Now that I have described how more than just crushed grapes goes into making wine, it involves a lot of chemicals as well, I will talk about how the wine is made. There are three main steps into making wine: the growing and the harvesting, the crushing and the pressing, and then finally the fermentation. According to wineandmoderation.eu, the first step is the growing and the harvesting. Where wine grapes are grown has an extremely large effect on what they will taste like. Warm-weathered grapes will be completely different from cool-weathered grapes, and depending on what wine the specific vineyard or winemaker is growing, they need to make sure that the climate they are in is suitable for that grape. Each grape has a different chemical makeup, and so these weathers have large effects on them. According to earthmagazine.org, most wines are grown during a growing season where the temperature ranges from 53 to 72, depending on the grape. For example, Pinot Noir grapes are grown with a cooler temperature of 57 to 62 degrees. Winemakers have to pay a lot of attention to the chemical makeup in order to make sure that they are making the best wine possible. Harvesting is the next part of paying attention to this. Making sure that they are plucking the grape at just the perfect time really ensures that they make the best wine possible, and it helps to make sure that every product they put out is similar. Once the grape is ripe, it is plucked, and then it's ready to be crushed and pressed. Crushing and pressing are the second steps in the process. In the past, we've all seen the movies where people stomp around in the buckets, or we've seen pictures of it. And that was used in the past and in Europe, and it's still used a lot today, but not for mass production of wine. Now we use machines to make it more sanitary and more efficient. I have a picture of this machine on slide 3. According to University of Southern California, since grape juice is clear, this crushing and pressing process is when the wine gets its color. So with the clear grape juice, when it meshes with the dark skin of the grape, the longer it sits in it, the darker it's going to be. So with whites, they need to get the skins out as quick as possible to ensure that they're getting the bright white color that people enjoy with their white wines. The final step in the process is fermentation. During the fermentation process, the key ingredient, as I stated in the previous ingredients, is yeast. Yeast is a single-cell fungus that, when mixed with the grape juice, it removes the sugars from the juice and turns it into alcohol and carbon dioxide. The equation for that is C6H12O6 to 2C2H5OH plus 2CO2. Temperature is extremely important when fermentating wine. The key temperature is usually around 72 degrees, but this can vary depending on the wines. In the stages of fermentation, there are two. The first stage is aerobic, which means with air. That is when the mixture is open to the air for about 2 to 4 days, and this is where the yeast reproduces quickly. The second stage is the anaerobic, which means without air, and this is where the mixture is sealed off from any and all air, and this is where most of the alcohol is produced. It usually takes weeks, but it can take up to months depending on the wine. And then once that process is finished, the yeast is removed from the mixture by either chilling the must or by filtering it out. Now that I have described how the wine is made, I'm going to talk about the final process that goes into winemaking. The final stage of winemaking is bottling and aging. Aging usually happens in large wooden barrels, and sometimes that can affect the flavor, but often it's the safest bet. They're usually stored in a controlled room that is extremely dark, and I have a picture of these large barrels in bulk on slide 4. In this room, the temperature should be controlled to about 50 to 60 degrees and dark so that the wine can age and do its thing when it needs to. According to University of Southern California, some wine should age for at least 2 years, which is like the darker reds and some of the lighter reds, and then lighter and fruity wines could only take about 3 to 6 months depending on the winemaker. Finally, the wine is bottled using a large machine and then refrigerated if necessary. And I have an image of this wine bottler machine on slide 5. With the wine aged and bottled, it is now ready to make its way to your table. In conclusion, I have taught my audience about the process of making wine, starting with what is in the wine and then going to how exactly the wine is made and how it's aged and bottled. Now, next time you consume wine, you'll know a little bit more about the process that went into making it. Thank you.